ومن اتبعه إلى يوم الدين إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفر ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Today's lesson is going to be on ar-Rahman. I was looking at his paper, I didn't like it, and it distracted me. This is the first surah. Everybody should open up a mushaf. Could somebody pass me a mushaf and open it up, please? This is the first surah that we're going to get to that we will not go over word for word. Does anybody know why? It's not a very long surah, but we only have an hour, okay? And in 1 hour, we can't go over word for word. This class was not intended to go over the Quran word for word. No, I need one in Arabic, just all Arabic, just one of the big ones. And if you have a stand, we could just put it right here, inshallah ta'ala. So this class was designed to give the general understanding of each surah so that a person would have something to go from with regards to the Quran. And that's all that we're supposed to be doing here. A detailed study of the Quran word for word is the next stage, is what you go to after this right here. After studying the Quran in a general way, then you go into more specifics, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakallah khair. I'll just put it like this. Thank you very much. Okay? Then we go to a very specific word for word. The only reason I went over Surat Al-Fatiha, Ikhlas, Falaq al-Nas, because those surah, those small chapters in the Quran, everybody uses them in the salah. Most people know them and they use them in salah, and since their brevity, the shortness of those surah, I thought it would be easier for us if we went over to them with some detail. So since we use them all the time, it would be easier to remember. In Surah Al-Rahman, we're going to go through this surah. The poem starts off like this. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahman, no words can expand the lengths to the strengths of this mercy's extent. The 55th chapter for genies and men. So which of these favors do you care to end? I don't know if we have enough room, so we're going to stop here and go through this part and then put the other part on the class. It says, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahman, no words can expand the lengths to the strengths of this mercy's extent, the 55th chapter for genies and men. So which of these favors do you care to end? Let's go through this. This surah is called Ar-Rahman. Okay? It's very rhythmic. I like this one a lot. It says, no word, and then it goes on to define what Ar-Rahman is. What are the 5 things we're looking for? What does the poem go in the beginning, in the introduction? Tafsir 101 is what we're going to do.
We're going to
break each surah down for every one of you. What's the next one? From whence it came. What's the next part? Its length and its name, its placement, and just what it claims. Okay, so let's see what this does. It talks about the name. The name is in Arabic, right? And in English, right? Yes or no, guys?
Yes.
Thank you. So the name in Arabic is ar-Rahman. Ar-Rahman. What does ar-Rahman mean? He tells you right here. He says, no words can expand the lengths to the strengths of this mercy's extent. Meaning the name or the word ar-Rahman is a word that is so rich that there are no words in English that can expand, that can go the length to express the strength of this mercy's extent, to the extent of this mercy. Does that make sense? The 55th, that's explaining what the name is. That's the name in Arabic and in English. Because Arabic is such a rich language, it takes more than just one word to express what an Arabic word. In some cases, you can write a whole book just on one word in Arabic. Okay, especially if that word is used in the Quran. So he says, no words can expand the lengths to the strengths of this mercy's extent. Allah's name, ar-Rahman, it means that he is dhu rahmatil wasi'ah. He is extremely merciful to his creation to the extent, and this is more merciful than ar-Rahim, because his mercy is for all the believers and all the disbelievers in this world, and specific for the believers in the hereafter. Whereas the word ar-Rahim is specific for the believers on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And this is what most of the people of Tafsir express with those two words. So ar-Rahman is ablagh, it's stronger in its expression of mercy. Okay? To the extent of mercy. Is that understood? Yes. Okay. Then it goes on to say the 55th chapter, and I spelled this wrong, 55th chapter for genies and men. Now this is the placement. It's placed where? It's 55th. So this surah is the 55th chapter in the Quran. And it's easily placed. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahman. No words can expand the lengths to the strengths of this mercy's extent. The 55th chapter for genies and men. Why does he mention for genies and men?
Because maybe the surah talks about jinns and men.
Right, because this chapter, as we'll get into it, it speaks directly to a thaqalan, or thaqalain if you would like to the genies and the men. The two creations that have choice. Allah specifies, and the whole Quran is for the genies and men. However, this surah is how can I say, directly talking to them. I'm trying to find some language for that. Directly calling them out and dealing with them. The whole surah is in a dual form, talking to these genies and men. So which of these favors do you care to end? Let me erase this and start again. Okay? Yeah, thanks. I'm going to erase it here. You erase this for me. Get our little technique going here. Thank you, sir. So he says here, so which, okay, hold on, let me get a little dry. So which of the favors, these favors, do you care to end? This is a question. Correct your paper. It should say Meccan or Medinan. Each ayah it flows. So which of these ayah do you dare oppose? There's 78. Recite them and think. Just which of these favors you don't want to take. Now, to go back over it again, it starts off ar-Rahman, ar-Rahman, no words can expand the lengths to the strengths of this mercy's extent. The 55th chapter for who? Genies and men. So which of these favors do you care to end? Now, in this poem, he repeats this line a few times in different ways. The reason why he does this is because in this surah, there's a recurring line. How many ayah in this surah? 78. Everybody should know that, right? All you're asked to do is memorize, come to class, and pay attention. Memorize, come to class, and pay attention. If you memorize, come to class, and pay attention, you will know in every surah where it came from, the length of every surah, the name of every surah, the placement of every surah, and what every surah claims generally. And then you'll be ready to study the classics in Usul Tafsir and to take a good study of Tafsir, understanding why the Mufassir is doing the things that he's doing, because you're prepared. And that's what we want to do for each other. Prepare you guys for Usul Tafsir from the classical direction and an in-depth study where you have some meat and potatoes and you can expound upon. There's some depth there and it's not shallow. So this is it has, how many ayah does it have? 78 ayah, right? 78 ayah. In those 78 ayah, 31 times the ayah فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ يُكَرِّرُهَا. It is repeated 31 times. How many is that? 78 minus 31 is what? Come on, somebody do the math with me. 47. Okay, now let's do something else also. The first 11 ayah introduce the surah. This surah is broken down into, let's say, 4 parts. The first 11 ayah, then there's another which introduce ar-Rahman, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. I don't want to precede myself. That's 11 ayah. Then there's a small group of ayah that that deal with another subject. We're going to talk about that later. Then there's a third section that talk about the garden, 2 gardens. And then there's a 4th section that talk about 2 more gardens. Okay? That's 4 parts of the surah. So the first 11 ayah, take 11 away from this. What's that? 36. Now we said 31. This is 36 right here. That's almost half the ayah in this surah repeat itself. Is this such a long surah after all? 36 ayah? Actually 37 because it's repeated, and then you have to learn the 11. It's a very easy ayah if you just pay attention to it. Okay? But what's the ayah that repeats itself? فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Which generally here the author puts through, so which of these favors do you care to end? This is not a direct translation, but this is something of expressing the tafsir of what those lines mean, and we'll get to that when we finish the poem here. So it says, so which of these favors do you care to end? It's a question. Which of the favors of your Lord do you care to end that you don't want? Can you name one? You don't like that the air comes easy? Would you like it to be heavy and you have to search it out and breathe with real strength, like the people with asthma have to do? Would you like that your eyes be on the bottom of your feet? Allah can do that. Which of the favors of your Lord do you care to end? So he says, Meccan or Medinan, each ayah it flows. What does this tell us here? What's that? No, the first thing, start here. It says Meccan or Medinan. What does that tell us about this? This is a poem, and inside the poem, it's a rumuz. This poem is written, though it's written in English, it's written according to the shurut, the conditions set in the poetry, the classical poetry of the Muslims of old. They used to write every science in a poem. But that poem, if it was read by someone who was not taught what the poem meant, they could not understand what it meant. Because inside were rules, inside were lessons that were only made clear if the teacher taught it to you. If you read the poem of Ajurumiyya, you wouldn't know what it's talking about unless someone explained it to you. You know? So likewise here, there's lessons in each line. It's not just a poem. Meccan or Medinan, each ayah, it flows. What is this trying to tell us? This first poem, initial poem, tells us what we're looking for. Tafsir 101 is what we're going to do. We're going to break each surah down for every one of you from whence it came. What does it tell us here? That Meccan or Medinan. This surah, there is ikhtilaf. And how many surah there's ikhtilaf? 12. In 12 surah, there's ikhtilaf amongst two. The senior scholar staff, in Fatiha, Falaq, Nas, Mutaffifin, and then Rahmanun Ra'adun Bayyina. So this is Surat Al-Rahman. So then there's ikhtilaf amongst the senior scholars whether this surah is from Mecca or Medina. So what the author did, he put in this poem, Meccan or Medinan, each ayah it flows. Because some of the ulama say that certain amount of ayah are Meccan and the rest are Medinan. Yes, aluhu. From that part on. And others say, no, it's all Meccan except for 8 ayah. There's ikhtilaf. So whether the ayah is from Mecca or whether it's from Medina, if the senior scholars argue, do we argue? No. So whether they're from Mecca or Medina, we know each ayah, it flows. It's very poetic, right? So which of these ayah do you dare oppose? If you've read the surah, which of those ayah, how many ayah? 70 ayah do you oppose? Which one of them are you against? Which one do you reject? None. There's 78, tells us. There's 78, what is he referring to here? Theirs refers back to the last thing mentioned. It's talking about the ayah, right? There's 78 ayah, right? Recite them and think. Allah tells us in the Quran, don't they think, don't they consider about the Quran? So we're taught by Allah and we're ordered by Allah to think about the ayat of Allah, the signs of Allah, and these ayat in the Quran. Recite them and think just which of these favors you don't want to take. Which one of them don't you want to go with you out of this anywhere? Excuse me? It's the same type of question. And the reason why it's done almost every time, why is it done like that? It's teaching you, it's a subtle way of teaching you that in this surah, almost every other line is فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Which of the favors, which of the blessings of your Lord do you deny? Do you all reject? And it's repeated almost every other ayah. As we see here, it's repeated. It's out of 31. It's 31 times repeated at about basically 36 ayah. That's almost every other ayah after the first 11, right? And the meaning of that question is all of that what you said here. It's which one of these favors do you care to end? And which one do you oppose? And which one don't you want to take? It's all, that's how comprehensive the Quran and the language of the Quran is. That though the wording doesn't change, the meaning is so multifaceted and comprehensive that at the same time it means all of this. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, and again, this poem, I like it. It really rhymes. To me, it rhymes nice. So, and that's also a reminder of how that surah, some people consider that surah the most rhythmic surah in the Quran. That's up to some ikhtilaf. Some people have their personal opinion about that. I don't want to get into that. But, of course, that repeating ayah goes on. And you will note that I never call the ayat of Quran verses. This to me is a mistake in the English language because a verse is, alaykum salam wa rahmatullah, is kinayatan or in place of poetry. Okay? And the Quran directly rejects the idea that this is any type of poetry. So these are not verses. Okay? These are ayat. Just like we call someone a Muslim And we don't explain the whole terminology that a Muslim is someone who's in Islam. And we don't say that. We say he's a Muslim. And the people get accustomed to calling them the Muslims. Right? We call these ayat, or these lines, that's what they've been called in other places. And we don't call them verses of poetry. Wallahu a'lam. And I'm not trying to be petty, but the English language has to be clarified what the Orientalists try to imply with their statements. And the implication with a verse, it points towards poetry. Okay? So, just as an argument there that you all can have. Someone erase the board, please. I'm going to spray this. Thank you. Walaikum salam. Sorry? Oh, no, you can't talk to him in class. It's not allowed. Here you go. You can't come to class late and start saying salams to people. You say salams to everybody and then... Huh? Okay. No, I'm going to hurt you. Jazakallah khair. Okay, well then you can't turn around and talk back to him. Okay? Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, I'm joking, but at the same time, the adab of the talib al-ilm is something that sometimes is lost on Americans in America. Because people think that if you're a student of knowledge, it's just because you don't have any money to do or education to do anything else. And we don't sometimes see the necessity. As one person said, I need a faqih more than I need a doctor. Because I need fiqh every day, right? But I only need the doctor when I get sick. So we need to go back to that. Now we're going to go over this surah. Again, we're going to do it in a little bit general way. I am going to talk about some aspects of the Quran, this surah. The first line, as we said before, is ar-Rahman. Ar-Rahman. And it is stated, this is the name of Allah, one of the names of Allah. And it means the extremely merciful. Extremely merciful to the entire creation. That's the good, the bad, and the ugly. As they said, everybody is included in the mercy of Allah. Ar-Rahman, in this dunya. He feeds us all. He lets water come down. And this is some of the ulama points to the fact that Allah doesn't care anything about the dunya. Okay? And it also means specifically merciful to the believers. Okay? So this is the meaning of Rahman. And it's stated that this surah is to respond to the kuffar who asked her, who is ar-Rahman? When they wanted to know who Rahman was, Allah responded to them by saying, ar-Rahman allama al-Qur'an. Ar-Rahman, and they were saying also that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's being taught the Qur'an, right? Tutla alayhi is being recited to him. Bukratan wasi. Every morning someone is reciting him these words and he's writing them down. Okay? This is a lie that's been made up. Other places in the Quran says similar. But Allah responded to that by saying, ar-Rahman allama al-Qur'an. Allah is the one who taught the Quran. And about this construction, allama. Allama means to teach, right? To make something known. And in this construction, there are two objects. The thing being taught and the one being taught. Okay? Allama al-Quran. He taught the Quran. But it's no mention of who he taught the Quran to. That is we call mahdhuf. It's not mentioned in that secondary line. So in that is allama. Some people say he taught all the creation, al-insan al-Quran, or he taught Muhammad the Quran, because a word like allama has two objects, right? Let's say you taught the Quran. Who'd you teach it to? You understand? That has to have two objects there. So the answer is not to me known. It taught to Muhammad the Quran, and by proxy taught the whole creation the Quran. Okay? And this is considered one of the greatest ni'mas, one of the greatest barakah that we've received, is that Allah taught us the Quran. Then after that, he says, خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانِ, created insan. Insan here, and I'm not writing all this down because there's so much that we have to go through. I'm going to try to keep it up. Khalaq al-insan. Insan is ismun jins, or a genre, as we would say in English language. A word that is genre. We say man. And we don't mean by this a man. We mean by this all mankind. So this is considered a genre. Does that make sense? For example, if we say camel, this is an ismul jins. What do we mean by the camel? We mean by the she camel, right? The pregnant camel, the baby camel, and the old, and the bull, and all the different types of camels there are. Likewise, when we say man, we mean man, woman, and child. Man, woman, and child. And child goes under man and woman, as this is the adult and this is the child. Each one of those. It includes fat, skinny, tall, short, dark, black, white, purple, green, all the different types. So that's what is considered there. And the reason why it's mentioned here, because and then insan is mentioned again. خلق الإنسان علمه البيان, and taught insan how to speak. And the alat of speaking, right? The alat of speaking is lisan wa shafatain, the tongue and the two lips, right? Alam naj'al lahum, right? Lakum, what? Allahu aynain wa lisanan wa shafatain. Jazakumullah khair. So Allah made for us not just the two eyes, but the consideration here is the tongue and the two lips. These are the adawat. These are the tools used for bayan. The tools used for speaking. Alamahul bayan. And the reason why Allah starts here in this type of consideration, this type of speech in beginning of Surah Al-Rahman is because He's letting the man know, the first part of Rahman, He lets man know what Allah has done for him. He's setting the stage. The first part of Surah Al-Rahman talks about what Allah has done for him. So He created man. First thing, and you see the order here. Allama al-Quran. First in the greatest barakah, Allah says that He taught him the Quran. Then after that He says He created all of mankind. Then He says He taught mankind bayan. And with our speech we're able to, nu'abbiru an anfusina, we're able to express what our needs are, what our wants are. Then it goes on to say, Ash-shamsu wal-qamaru bi-husban. The next greatest thing that Allah has done for us, He made the shams, the sun, and the moon go in a certain order. And in this order, many ayat in the Quran, and I don't want to name them all because it will take all day for us and we only have an hour. It expresses how this balance, this husban, this hisab, which is considered math, it goes in a certain way so that, لِتَعْلَمُوا, Allah mentions in the Quran matter time, so that you can know عَدَدَ السَّنِينِ وَالْحِسَابِ, so that you will be able to deduce, so that we'll be able to know the months of the year, the days, the hours, and the months, the weeks, the days. So that we can know this, and by knowing these things, we're able to do certain things, right? So this is the next thing that Allah speaks of right here. Then it says, وَالنَّجْمُ وَالشَّجَرُ يَسْجُدَانِ, and the sun and the trees, they prostrate to Allah. And some of the mufassirun erroneously call this, wallahu alhamdulillah alhamd, they say that وَالنَّجْمُ is herbs. But nowhere in the Quran, in the best tafsir of the Quran, is the Quran, is we say the najmu is the stars. And the stars, they beautify the sky, and the trees, they beautify the earth. And both these things prostrate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these things, we like to look at these things. And they help us out. When you ever been in the desert and you don't see anything, it's different when you come down out of the desert into like Senegal or something like that, or you go up into Morocco and you see all the greenery and everything. It helps the eyes. Then the night when it's dark and you don't see anything, you're more afraid than when the night you go out and you see a whole bunch of beautiful nujum, stars in the sky. So these are the barakah. These are that Allah has blessed us. And these things, as great and grand they are, prostrate to Allah. So we can reflect upon that. And there's وَالسَّمَاءَ رَفَعَهَا وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانَ. And the sky, Allah raised it up off the earth. Allah could have put the sky right here real low and we would have to walk down like this or something like that because we can't live without the sky. But the barakah that Allah put, He raised the sky high off the earth. And this is a barakah that sometimes we don't take into consideration. That Allah raised the sky high above our heads. And then وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانِ. And some people think that this mizan, this scale, is al-adl, because it's mentioned in other places in the Quran as justice, and this is not true here, because Allah says He anzal al-mizan in other places, and here He says wada al-mizan, and so the wada al-mizan, or the placing the mizan, here is the actual scale. The actual scales that subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us to use, like in Surah Al-Mutaffifin, where Allah tells us not to be mutaffifin and not to cheat in the scales, and in other surah like Surah Al-Shu'aib, and where the Prophet Shu'aib is mentioned and how they cheated in the scales. And this part of justice is very, as we spoke about in Surah Al-Mutaffifin, is very important for the ease of life, that people do justice. So it says, وَأَقِيمُوا what's it say? Astaghfirullah. La alla tatagaw fil mizan, and that you don't exceed the limits in the scale. So explaining here, وَأَقِيمُوا الْوَزْنَ بِالْقِسْطِ وَلَا تُخْسِرُوا الْمِيزَانِ. And so وَأَقِيمُوا الْوَزْنَ, here it is with your body, to establish the scale, بِالْقِسْطِ, and that's with your heart. This again, Allah is setting the stage for what He's about to talk about, and I don't want to go into it ayah for ayah, but this first part I wanted to. وَلَا تُخْسِرُوا الْمِيزَانِ. So you don't break the mizan. All these ayah here are talking about the mizan, how to be upright in your dealings. And you're buying and selling, as this is a very fundamental day-to-day part of life for everyone. Then it says, وَالْأَرْضَ وَضَعَهَا لِلْأَنَامِ. And the earth, He placed it and spread it out, لِلْأَنَامِ. And anam here is everybody. All the creatures and crawlings, the genies and the men, the ants, and the all types of creatures. This is what it's here for. Wallahu a'lam. فيها فاكهة ونخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان. So here it talks about فيها فاكهة ونخل. It talks about fruits and the date palms, the different types of fruits. وذات الأكمام, and those types of fruits that come in sheaths. A type of fruit that comes in a sheath would be like an orange or a banana. These types of things, the singular of it is kim. So those things that come enclosed in their own wrapper, so to speak. So he describes different types of fruits, and then the fawakih, that's what they call it. What do you call the thing? A nakhla is date palms, the cereals type things, and then you have those that come in their own covering. Then it talks about what وَالْحَبُّ ذُو الْعَصْفِ وَالرَّيْحَانِ. وَالْحَبُّ ذُو الْعَصْفِ, this is like the wheats and the sha'ir. What is sha'ir? The oatmeal, oats, and these types of things, and corn. Dhul asfi, these are the ones that come in, and Allah speaks about this in lots of times, that the men eat this and you feed your animals. And it's what happens to that type of vegetation. You take the top part, you take the wheat, you take the corn, and then when you're finished with the husk, you give it to the animals and they can still benefit from it. Or you chop it and you roll it together and you make straw and you store it away and you feed your animals. So everybody's benefiting from this same type of fruit, or not fruit, I don't know if it's what type of agriculture it's considered. But, and I'm not a farmer, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. The corn, what is that considered? Does anybody know? Like a grain. The grains, thank you very much. Those type of grains, the humans and the animals eat those things. This is again the better. What rayhan and rahan are considered the sweet smelling things. Those that have a good smell to them. Some people say it's the leaves also of the different types of fruits, of vegetation. Wallahu a'lam. Then at that point, these are the first 11 ayah, then it goes on, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. After that general yet comprehensive, explanation of what Allah is doing for us, He says, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. And that's what we need to look at, this word right here. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Which of the favors, آلَاءِ, فَبِأَيِّ. So then, fa here is so. After that, fabi which ay is very comprehensive also. It means which, any which. Okay? Fabi alai. Alai is plural of ala. Alauddin is a very famous person in the American culture. They mispronounce his name, but Alauddin, they call him Aladdin. Okay? But the word is Alauddin. The one who has the blessings of this deen. And he was a person. But since, like I said, whenever you study, Greek mythology or you study American culture, what they've taken from the Islamic culture, they were very poor students. And they mispronounced words, and in the mispronouncement, as Allah says, يُحَرِّفُونَ كَلَامَ اللَّهِ, they changed the wording of the speech of Allah. What else do you think they're going to change? They can change everything. So in their poor studies, they mispronounce words, so you lose the whole meaning of it. So Ala-ad-Din is Aladdin in American culture. So you're familiar with the word Ala, which means blessing. Okay? Ala'i is blessings in the plural. So فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا. Here it says رَبِّكُمَا. Your two, the two of, you see, in English, we don't speak like this. But in Arabic, when you say رَبِّكُ, oh man. Let me get a tissue here.
It's not dry?
Yeah, it's not dry. No problem. Alhamdulillah, barakallahu feena. Rabbikuma. Let's break the word down. Here the word is Rabb. Okay? Rabb is the word that means Lord. The kaf here, if you come down, ka at the end of the word means you or your. Here it means your, but it's not alone. Here the meme is meme al-jama'. The meme is plural. The meme here means plural. So it takes ka from being you and your, and when you put the meme on it, the meme of plurality, it makes you alls, right? You're following me? Are you all following me or not? Yes. Okay, then the alif al-ithnan. This alif by itself means two. Okay? The alif means two. We call it the alif of two. So when you add the alif for two on the meme of plural, and you add that means kuma, you, the two of you all, both of you. Okay? And since this construction does not come in the English language, because in Arabic, we have three constructions when it's dealing with amount. We have the singular, we have the dual, and then we have the plural. What did I say? We have the singular, the dual, and then we have the plural. In English, you more likely have the singular and the plural. And it's not clear. You can add the two of you, but it's not done in English language a lot. It's rare and not understood generally. Okay? So here in Arabic, it specifies the two of you all. What are the two he's talking about that Allah's talking about here? The genies and the men. And it goes on to express that as we go down. The genies and the men. So which of you all two's Lord? Who are the two's Lord? The genie's Lord and the man's Lord. Okay? Al-Thaqalan, the two creations that have choice. Allah is specifying them right now. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا. Which of the blessings of you two's Lord تُكَذِّبَانِ. Again, we're going to كَذِّبَانِ here. تُكَذِّبَانِ. And we're going to do this. We're going to do this again. Look at this word. Come erase this while I do this. تُكَذِّبَانِ. Ta in front of a word means you. Okay? Here, the word is kadhib. Does everybody know what the word kadhib means?
Yes, liar.
A liar. Something dealing with lying, right? And here, the alif and the nun. This right here, this construction again is for duality. Two. The alif name and the nun is thaba to make it in what we consider the active form. The form of the one that's actually doing something. The one who did it. Okay, so we put that nun there. Yaf'alani yaf'alun. Wa taf'alina. You know, this noon in the word of the Arabic means you're the one that's doing it. I don't want to get too trapped up in the Arabic grammar, but I want you to realize that this alif and noon here is duality. So it doesn't mean just you are lying or you are rejecting. It means the two of you all are rejecting. Which one do you two types of people, not people, but types of creation, do you two want to reject? Okay? Which one of the favors that Allah just mentioned in those 11 ayat and gave instruction towards? Is that clear? Yes, ma'am.
What does that say under and?
And it means two. I'm going to say dual. Duality. Okay? And it's with reference to the genies and the mankind. Okay? Then Allah immediately, erase this please. As I write, just erase what I wrote on the board. Because we have to go through this. We've finished the first part of the surah. The whole first part of the surah is to mention to us the favors some of the favors that Allah did to us in our creation, in teaching us the Quran, in our creation, right? And some of the things that we're dealing with our day-to-day life. And then he asks us, which of these favors do we care to reject? You two, genies and men. Then he goes on to say, خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ صَلْصَالٍ كَالْفَخَّارِ. Immediately he talks about the creation. He talks about the creation of insan. He starts off with men first, right? So he's talking to these two creations, and he said he created man from salsal min teen, right? Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Potter's clay. Potter's clay. And then it says, the next ayah, he says, وَخَلَقَ الْجَانَّ مِن مَارَجٍ مِن نَارٍ. And he says, and he created, again, khalaqa, the genies from smokeless fire, let's say. And we're not going to get into the discussion amongst the Mufassirun. Some of them say it's from the red, the green, and the yellow fire. Some say it's from the smokeless fire. Is smokeless fire the strongest? The most repeated speech is smokeless fire. Okay? Very hot fire. What is the benefit in this mention? And he doesn't say between them. He mentions these two after that first part. Then immediately he mentions the two creations and how he created them. How he created us. The humans and the genies. The benefit, some of the ulama say, is that from clay or dirt, as it goes down, because dirt here is the initial form, and then after being baked, it turns into clay. It says, so man is made from dirt, made from this earth. And from this earth, man finds his food. And from this earth, man is buried. And from this earth, man builds his homes. So man is basically built from something that he benefits from. Something that is beneficial. This dirt. Okay? But the genie, he's made from this smokeless fire. And the ulama talk about fire. If it's not watched with a lot of caution, if it's not dealt with precariously, it causes a lot of harm to the one who uses it, if he's not mindful of it. Likewise, if you don't and you're not cautious about these genies and about these devils, they will cause a lot of harm and fasad in the earth. So here is a benefit from telling and letting us know from which we are created from, so that we can reflect on that and be proud, not proud in an arrogant way, honored from what we're made from, and be cautious from that thing that we're not made from, that fire. Does everybody understand that? Then we're starting to go through another vein. Push this off the board, please. Like I said, I'm not going to be able to go through every ayah, but what I did is I tried to generalize the basis of this surah so that we can grow from that. Okay? It's broken down into 3 parts. We're in the 4 parts. We're in the second part of it right now. Make sure you dry that, please. The second part, where he tells us about the creation. And he's not just talking about creation, there's going to be general terms here. And then Allah says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Which now of the favors of your Lord will you reject? But if we don't reflect on the meaning behind this creation, we don't know why Allah mentioned that, and what's the benefit in knowing from which we are created, and what the benefit is knowing that the genies are created, right? But now we know. You want to reject that knowledge? No. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, رَبُّ الْمَشْرِقَيْنِ وَرَبُّ الْمَغْرِبَيْنِ. Why does he mention it two? The mashriq, here we have mashriq, wal maghrib, okay? And it's mentioned in the dual form. The two mashriq and the two maghrib. What does mashriq mean? What does ma in front of a word mean? A place of. How do we know that? What's the first place we see that? Suratul what? Suratul Fatiha. Ghayrul Maghdubi. Maghdubi is a place of the ghadab of Allah. The place of the anger of Allah. And it's mentioned in this very eloquent way to make something that is inanimate mentioned in an animate form. So you can reflect upon that. Don't become the place of Allah's anger. Okay? And so here we're standing in a what? Masjid. So this is a place of sajda. Undo your fingers like that. Okay? So there's a place of sajda. So here, ma lets you know in every form of Arabic, ma lets you know a place of something. So this is a place of sharq. What is the sharq? Sorry? Somebody? Somebody said it? East. So what are the two easts? And what is the maghrib? West. So the two wests. What are the two easts and the two wests? What comes up on the east? The sun comes up where? And it sets in the west, right? So the two easts and the two wests are the places in the summertime that the sun comes up and the placement where it comes up in the wintertime. This is knowledge that the Arabs at that time did not know about the astronomy and how the world is spinning on its axis and the sun is constantly moving and the earth is moving in this rotation, what we call a solar system now. That the place that it rises in the east in the wintertime is not the same place that it rises in the east in the summertime. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting this knowledge there for us to understand that He is Lord of both the two easts and Lord of both the two wests at every time of the year as it changes. Okay? فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا. This again is dealing, the second part is dealing with that creation. Okay? It's talking first how we were created and how this world is going around. Then it says, مَرَجَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ يَلْتَقِيَانِ بَيْنَهُمَا بَرْزَخٌ لَا يَبْغِيَانِ. It talks about now, after this rising of the sun, you have to keep getting this off the board. It now starts to talk about the two, مَرَجَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ يَلْتَقِيَانِ, that the two rivers, the two oceans, the two types of water here. What did he say? Astaghfirullah, my mind is going. يَلْتَقِيَانِ بَيْنَهُمَا بَرْزَخٌ لَا يَبْغِيَانِ. That these two types of water, what are the two types of water?
The one is sweet and one is salted.
Okay. Sweet water, okay, and salt water, right? So sweet water, give me an example of sweet water, because some people may not understand what that means.
This is usually from the river mostly.
So we call this in English fresh water. We don't call it sweet water. And a lot of the translators say this is sweet water, and nobody knows what they're talking about if they speak English, because we're not taught that this is sweet water. We call this fresh water, water that you can drink. So fresh water comes out of rivers, right? Fresh water is in lakes. This is the water that comes from the sky. All this type of water comes out of the sky, all over the world, and we can drink it. Whereas this water, this salt water, where does that come from? That's already here. That's in the ocean. That's ocean water. Can you drink it? No. You can't without getting sick. But there's benefit in both. So the mention, again, we're dealing with the creation now in this part of Surat Al-Rahman. The benefit from the rivers and the lakes and the fresh water is that we can drink it. Okay? We can drink this water. And there's other benefits that they run my mind right now. Let me see. I wrote some of them down. Sorry. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. شر الجن والإنس يذبحون. I don't see it right off the top of my head. I don't want to look for it. But anyway, some of the benefits that we have from the fresh water is that we can drink it, okay? And from the salt water, it purifies the air. That's something that a lot of people don't realize. But the ocean water and the salt water purifies the environment for us. So just those two things right there are beneficial for us to understand. And majority of the world get their food out of the oceans and the seas, and oceans and the rivers. We think that everybody eats just the land animals. But you go into the middle of Africa, you go into the Congo, and people are eating fish. You go to the middle of Sahara Desert, and people are eating fresh fish every day. That's the importance of the food that comes out of the oceans and the sweets. In Mauritania, we live in the Sahara Desert. You go to the shore, and there's trucks waiting there with their car engines on and ice all filled in the back. When the guy comes out of the boat, out right off the sea, he runs up, he dumps them into the ice, the car takes off. By the next morning, the ice is melted, and they're 300 miles, however far away they are in the middle of the desert, and you're getting this fresh fish, and you're eating it all day long. So, You see it like that all over in West Africa. And then I learned from when you go into the Congo, go in the middle, they have that big Congolese river that comes up there and people are eating fresh fish and everything like that. The Indian continent, look, some of the baddest sailors in the world come from that Indian Ocean. You know, so all over the world, and the world is what, 60% water. So the blessing that Allah says in this ocean, in this water, we can eat those things that come out of it. Whatever comes out of the ocean, that salt water. Okay? So then it goes on. فَأَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ يَخْرُجُ مِنْهُمَا اللُّؤْلُؤُ وَالْمَرْجَانِ. And so what comes out of here now is lu'lu wal marjan. These two gems, this coral and these pearls that come out of this ocean right here. Again, the creation. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ وَلَهُ جِوَارٌ مُنْشَآتٌ فِي الْبَحْرِ كَالْأَعْلَامِ. Again, it's talking about sea trade now. How these ships, as big as they are and laden full of trade, they go back and forth and we benefit from that. Today, modern day warfare, the whole thing that's going on in the world today is because of the Suez Canal and the Panama Canal. Again, trade going through the ocean and when people want to take shortcuts. So the fact that Allah mentions that the barakah, the blessing, that one of the blessings He has done is allow us to put these big old heavy loads on the ocean and run them back and forth with trade. Which one of these favors of your Lord would you reject? And all the traders and all the businessmen in here, they rely on this stuff to come into dock. They wait for their shipments to come in so they can get their stuff and sell their wares that are rare in the areas that they're selling. I see some people smiling, you know, when they think about that. كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام. Okay, so now in this last part here, He said, Allah mentions that كل من عليها فان, everything on earth, كل من, and man, this word here, man is لعقلاء, okay, it's for the people with an intellect, meaning again the jinn and the men. But everything on earth, غالبا, most of the time is for that, but Allah says everything, كل من عليها فان, everything on earth is going to desist. Everything is going to die. And nothing's going to remain except for the face of Allah, Dhul Jalali wal Ikram. And in this wasf, this description of Allah, you say Jalal wal Ikram. And the difference here in the two words, because they both denote nobility and majestic placement. Okay, but why these two words? Because when you look them up in English, you say, well, both of them mean majesty and nobility. Kiram from Kareem, and Jalil and his majesty. But one is just due to Allah, or both are due to Allah, bidhatihi, for His own self. But here the Jalala denotes just by the mere fact that He is Allah, without doing anything else besides being Allah. He is Jalal. He is majestic and noble, and not doesn't denote might here, but the kingdom and the nobility aspect comes into place. What Ikram is due to how generous and all the in'am, all the blessings that Allah gives upon His creation. So whereas both denote nobility, they denote different aspects of that nobility. You know, well, one is denoting royalty. This person, when you meet this person on a greatly lesser scale, you meet a person, he acts just by the mere air of himself in a jaleel, in a type of way, because he has good breeding, he comes from good stock, he has good manners. He hasn't done anything though, just himself. But then the person who comes and he spends on the people, he works and he does his effort. This is from ikramihi, okay? This is from his nobility of his infaq, when him spending on his creation. Does that make sense? And that's the only thing that remains. This ends this aspect of that when He tells everything is going to end. This ends that second portion of Surat Al-Rahman. And now we move on to the third portion. The third portion, come on, get this off the board, please. The third portion where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins with says, what do you call it? يَسْأَلُهُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ I'm sorry, I got another two ayah where it says, يَسْأَلُهُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ كُلَّ يَوْمٍ هُوَ فِي شَأْنٍ. He says, everyone on the earth is asking Allah for something. يَسْأَلُهُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَفِي الْأَرْضِ. Everything on the heavens and the earth is asking of Allah, طَلَبُ Allah. And Allah is giving. And in His giving, Allah is not busy to not turn around to another affair. كُلَّ يَوْمٍ هُوَ فِي شَأْنٍ. Every day He's in a new affair. Every day He's involved in everybody's affair. Those who are asking, He's giving, making those rich. He's refusing those other people. He's giving life and He's causing people to die. Okay? Everything that Allah is doing does not busy Allah from doing something else for anybody and not attending to everyone's affairs. Does that make sense? So then it goes on to say, okay, so then Allah says here, here he says, I'm gonna deal with you. I'm gonna give you your hisab. But this is a statement of someone who is not busy. So if you're not busy, it says, I'm gonna take my time and deal with you. And the person that one is not busy, that lets you know that even that he's gonna give some special consideration. Here he's talking to the two heavy pieces. Who are the two heavy ones? This is the genies and the men. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ma'ashar al-jinni wal-insi in istata'tumu an tanfudu min aqtari samawati wal-ard fanfudu. La tanfuduna illa bis-sultan. It says, O you creation, Ya ma'ashar, O group. This statement in Arabic is, again, another statement that you cannot put in English language. Ya ma'ashar means whole group of people, whole group of whatever. But Allah says, Ya ma'ashar al-jinni wal-ins. O you big group of genies and mankind. If it is possible, if you think you can, get out of here and go someplace else outside of my realm, outside of my kingdom. If you go as far as you can, try to get, and this is the basis, you hear some of the Mufassirin talking about, the modern Mufassirin talking about, this is the basis why the kuffar have this big, predilection with space. And they keep telling you, we're going to go out in space and we're going to freeze my body so that when you learn how to get off this planet, we can get out of here and escape death and go 20 light years away and get out of here. And Allah says, "La tanfuduna illa bis-sultan." You ain't getting out of here. You can't escape. You can't go anywhere off this planet and get through the solar system without the permission of Allah. That's why when they put their ship up, they called it what? The Challenger that they sent out recently. And it came back and blew up on Earth, and they didn't even find the bodies of the people. They didn't even find the bodies of the people. So, there's a lot. And of course, they say that they traveled to the moon, and they still have that black and white picture, and they don't have any other pictures after, HD reality TV came in. They can't bring any more of that. So the ulama say they haven't traveled outside the lower heaven. They haven't broken that because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told them, "La tanfudun illa bis-sultan." You won't be able to do it except for with permission, with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then it goes on to say, يُرْسَلُ عَلَيْكُمَا شُوَاظٌ مِّن نَارٍ وَنُحَاسٌ فَلَا تَنْتَصِرَانِ. It says that Allah will send these fire bolts after them, and they won't be able to escape it, and there'll be nuhasun, which is like copper, molten fire upon them, and then they're not going to be successful. فَإِذَا انشَقَّتِ السَّمَاءُ فَكَانَتْ وَرْدَةً كَالدِّهَانِ. Now here we're going to that other part where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about when the sky is ripped asunder. When the sky is ripped. Now this takes us out of the reality that we live in today. Because to us, the sky is not madda. It's not a material that we can rip. And a lot of us in our weak intellect are so ignorant, we can't think past the extent of our intellect. So anything that we can't do, we think is impossible. But we have to recognize that the creation of man has a finite intellect. It's a limited intellect. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has infinite power to do whatever Allah wants. Allah created the sky. So if Allah wants the sky to rip asunder, the sky will rip asunder in a manner that Allah wants it to. And even what we think with science or whatever doesn't make a difference. So Allah says, when the sky is ripped and it becomes red and dye-like with that brownish duhn type color, and then the angels are coming through, and it says, فَيَوْمَئِذٍ لَا يُسْأَلُ عَنْ ذَنْبِهِ إِنسٌ وَلَا جَانٌ. Here is the third part right here, where we talk about the punishment of the genies and men. And I'm going to go over it just to talk about it right quick. So it says, فَيَوْمَئِذٍ لَا يُسْأَلُ عَنْ ذَنْبِهِ إِنسٌ وَلَا جَانٌ. The first thing we heard here is that they're not going to be asked. They're not going to be questioned. About what they did, about their sins, okay? Now some people say, well, no, hold on. They're going to be questioned. So the ulama, when they talk about this, they say they're not going to be asked, did you do this or did you do that? They're going to be asked, why did you do that? Okay? Why did you do that? And this is a different, it's going to be done in a very, strong and zajr in Arabic is like a tough manner. So it's not really wanting an answer from you, but you're going to be dealt with, okay? And others say that they're not initially going to be asked. It's going to happen sometime later. When the angels come and they snatch up the people and the jinns and they separate them into the three groups, as the muqarribun, ashab al-yamin, and those people who are going on the left, they're not asking them. They're just taking them, you over here, and you over here, and you over here, and they're putting them in those different rows. So this is the different statements that they're saying about that. Then it says, يُعْرَفُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ بِسِيمَاهُمْ فَيُؤْخَذُ بِالنَّوَاسِ وَالْأَقْدَامِ. Here is proof about this. It says that what's going to happen next is that the criminals are going to be easily recognizable. Recognized by, because they have certain signs. They have certain signs, by their signs. And then they're going to be taken, or snatched, actually, by their foreheads. Actually, it's their nawasi, which is the piece of hair on the front of your head. The nawasi is that piece of hair in here. Even if it's so small, Allah has the ant by its forelock. That's how mighty the grip of Allah is. By their forelock and their feet. Okay, that's just one part of it. Let's go through this real brief. It says they're not going to be questioned. It's going to be separated into those three groups. But as the angels come, it says that the angels are going to surround all of mankind. And there's going to be 7 rows of angels. 7 rows. Just imagine each person, there's going to be 7 rows of angels surrounding them from every direction. And as they're surrounded, they're being separated. The muqarribun hana are in one place, the people of the right hand one place, and the criminals. How do they know the criminals? They're going to be recognized by the signs. What signs do the criminals have? They're going to have darkened faces. Sometimes somebody does something, they're embarrassed, their face looks like it turns dark, or they get red. Here, their face is going to turn black, and their eyes are going to be blue. They're going to be blue eyes, and they're going to be dark faces. As they're more than 4 or 5 of them. Mufassirun describe them that way. And they're going to get snatched up. The angel's going to snatch them up by their head and their feet. But they're not just snatch them up by their head and their feet. They snatch them up by their head and their feet, and they bend them backwards. They snap on their backs backwards so that their head goes backwards to their feet. And then they snap them and they toss them into the fire. And they say they're snapping them like you snap twigs before you throw it into a fire. By the head and the feet, and they bend them over khalf, wara'an, behind his back, not forward, behind his back, and then tossing them into the fire. And the next line here in the surah says that they're going to say, هذه جهنم التي يكذب بها المجرمون. Then they're going to be told, as they're thrown into the fire, they're going to be told, they're going to be said something to them. They say, this is Jahannam. This is the hellfire that the criminals used to deny. How about that? Here you go. Just throw them into the hellfire, talking to them. This is the hellfire that the criminals used to reject, used to call was a lie. So then that ends and says, يَطُوفُونَ بَيْنَهَا وَبَيْنَ حَمِيمٍ آنٍ. And they're going to go back and forth. These criminals back and forth in the hellfire, between the fire, وَحَمِيمٍ آنٍ, and boiling, scalding water. And they're going to be forced to drink it. Okay, let's talk about this. When they get thrown in the fire, if they can't take it anymore, they try to get relief from what they see as some type of flowing substance. But Hamim and An, as described, is a valley from the valleys in the hellfire, where the pus from the wounds and the injuries of the people in hellfire gathers up. And it's pus. And they think that it's water. And it's so hot in the hellfire that this pus boils. And they say An means Ani, Ya'ani. Okay? For who are Anin. It boils to the highest extent that something can boil. And because the fire is so scalding, they are forced to drink this thing to try to find relief. And all it does is burn them inside out. And it says also that the angels are going to take some of them by their heads and stick them in that boiling substance and move them around in it till their whole inside boil, and their skin and their flesh boils off and nothing's left but their bones and their eyes. And then Allah is going to give them another creation and it's going to start all over again. So these are the things that the criminal is described in Surat Al-Rahman, the third part. And now we're going to go into the fourth and the final part, but the fourth part is broken into two parts. And inshallah ta'ala, I'm trying to be very, very quick so that we can get it. Don't move this off the board, because I wanted to see these are the four stages of Surah Al-Rahman. Get it dry for me. So then Allah, thank you, sir. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلِمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ جَنَّتَانِ. And then it starts off with a new line. وَلِمَنْ خَافَ رَبَّهُ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ. The one who has fear, khawf. The one who is fearful of the place of his Lord. مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ. Everybody says, yo, you don't understand my place. You know who I'm talking to? Who you talking to? You don't know who I am? We say this as these humans that we are to people who are lower than us, who we think are lower to us. You know who we talking to. We say this all the time, right? So Allah says, وَلِمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ. The one who is fearful of who Allah is, the place of Allah, Jannatan. He gets 2 gardens. How many gardens? 2 gardens. Right off the bat. I'd rather go here. You notice, from that last description, right? He says, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ ذَوَتَا أَفْنَانٍ. It's going to be possessing. It is going to mention what's going to possess Afnan. And Afnan is, it's a few words. You can say Al-San, which means branches. It also means Fen, which means different types of things. 2 types. Possessing 2 types of everything. Okay? Everything is in 2s. They say you ain't going to get bored in paradise. You got 2 of everything. Okay? ذَوَتَا أَفْنَانٍ فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ فِيهِمَا عَيْنَانِ تَجْرِيَانِ. In both these 2 gardens, there are springs, 2 springs. 2 springs that are flowing. The water is flowing water. It's important to understand how the water is flowing. Okay? In these 2 gardens, there are 2 springs in those 2 gardens. Okay? So actually there's 4 springs, right? Yeah. So in each one of these gardens, 2 springs. فيهما عينان تجريان فيهما من كل فاكهة زوجان. And in these is going to be every type of fruit in pairs. And some people say, what do you mean in pairs? So they say that it'll be dry fruit. Like you eat what's the fruit? The orange one, the apricot, and then you eat dried apricots, right? You eat grapes and you eat raisins. Every type of you eat the what do you call it? A teen? What is a teen called in English? Teen. Figs. You eat the figs raw and it tastes like jelly, right? You eat fig jelly, and then when it dries up, you eat them. They call them prunes, right? Is it the same thing?
It's a
plum. Okay, well I don't know, but. Everything's going to be paired. Some say the dried ones and the fresh ones. We like them all the same, okay? من كل فاكهة زوجان متكئين على فرش بطائنها من استبرق وجنى الجنتين دان. It says the people are going to be reclining, okay? Everybody's going to be reclining on couches. They got something to line. The insides of which is made out of silk. The inside. And some people say the bottom part, not even the part that the people touching, is going to be made out of a rich silk brocade, And they say, وَجَنَى الْجَنَّتَيْنِ دَانٍ. And all the fruit, everything that's on the trees, is going to be in reach. It's in reach if you're standing. It's in reach if you're sitting. It's in reach if you're laying down. Well, you just got to put your hand. You don't even have to extend your hand, okay? You just have to just want it, and as you want it, it wants you. So it comes down to you, whatever position you're in, okay? And not crowding you, okay? So this is what it's talking about here. The inside or the bottom part is silk and brocade. And this is mentioned, they say that if the inside, if the bottom part, that you know, if the inside of it is made out of silk, who knows what the outside is?
What is that word? Brocade?
Brocade, yes, brocade. Rich brocade is like a type of cloth, okay? So you know the benefit of something if its inside is made out of something really rich, then the outside has to be much better, right? Like if the inside of your socks is made out of the richest type of material in the world, the outside, the pants must be really good too. So we might assume. So you can take this off. And everything in the garden is within reach, like I said. Then it goes on to say, This eye, these next two eyes, dry it up here, please, because I'm about to hear. This next part is, it says, in them will be qasiratu tarf. The ladies, it's talking about a type of woman that's going to be there. And this woman, she is so enamored, she is so much in love with her man, okay, that her eyes don't leave him. She don't look nowhere but at him. Otherwise, she ain't looking at nobody. That's how much love she has for him, that she doesn't even want to see nobody else. That's what Allah says in the Quran. Then it says, no one, lam yatamithunna. It says, no one, no genie and no man has ever, before the persons before him, has ever touched her. And it said, and it mentions, and you know, we're mature here, it mentions in the Arabic language that no one has cracked her or opened her up, period, before him. And it's talking about them having intercourse. Here in the language, tamaf, it is regarding bleeding, tadum. And it says, so it mentions that no one has made this woman bleed from incest or even touched her or opened her up ever. So they say, abkarul bukra. And it says, abkarul beka, the most highest extent of a virgin in that regard, before this man. So this is, and then they say, كَأَنَّهُ الْيَاقُوتُ وَالْمَرْجَانِ. It's like, Allah says, كَأَنَّهُنَّ. It's like these women, are yaqut wa marjan, are like precious. What is yaqut? It's like a type of ruby, type of gem. I'm going to say, like gems, what marjan, and coral. You know, protected. Very precious and rare. Okay? Then it goes on to say, هل جزاء الإحسان إلا الإحسان? Is there a reward? Is a question again. Is there a reward for goodness except for goodness? Okay? Is there any reward for that? So then here it ends this part. Erase this part. That's the first job. We're in the fourth part, right? All the things that you're going to get in the two gardens. Please erase that. The two gardens. The first two gardens. All the things that we lifted off. Now, then it goes on to say, وَمِن دُونِهِمَا جَنَّتَانِ. And under those two gardens, guess what? It's two more gardens. Two more gardens. And these gardens are lesser than the first two that we mentioned. Okay? The first two are higher. This is وَمِن دُونِهِمَا. Under those two gardens, lower than those two gardens, are two more gardens. مُدَهَمَّتَانِ. These two gardens are thick with greenery. And already the description is lesser than the first description. Okay? Now it's thick with greenery. And it has two springs. Two springs, or you know, two springs that are gushing. What were the first two? Flowing, right? Yeah. The water was flowing. This one is gushing. So which one is better? This one or the first one? The first one. Because the flowing means it's there. Without the gushing, it's coming. Okay? And you'd rather be there than it coming. Then it goes on to say, it tells you it has fruit. And then it says it has dates. And it has pomegranates. And it mentions, those things it mentioned. What did the first one say? It's all types of fruit in pairs, every type possible. So again, this one is a lesser type of garden, but still fat. You know, if I can't get the first one, I want this too, right? Then it goes on to say, فِيهِنَّ خَيْرَاتٌ حِسَانٌ. Then it goes on to say that it has these beautiful women. It says خَيْرَاتٌ حِسَانٌ. Beautiful women who are called حُرُ الْعِينِ. Hurum maqsuratun fil khiyam. These beautiful women are called, here because that's where you get the name Hur al-Ain. These huris, and these huris have these big black eyes, you know, that denote innocence. You know, you saw somebody big, bright-eyed like that, you say, oh, green as a square as a pool table. They're not mixed. They're naive in this regard. So you have these beautiful women who are goodly, and they have this innocent look about themselves. Maqsuratun fil qiyam, and they are protected and restricted to their tents. So they haven't left their tents. They're just in their tents preparing for their husbands the whole time. And these tents are not just any tent. They say these tents are 60 miles wide. And inside there you have 2 wives. They say a wife in every corner. And then they describe it, said it's 30 miles away from the other wife, and they never have to see the other wife. Women like that. Okay? And they say the man comes to the tent, and he doesn't see the other, and he goes and visits them both, and they never see each other. This is peace, right? It's Jannah. It's paradise. And the same thing. No man or genie ever before their husbands has touched them. Okay? Period. The same description there. And then it says, مُتَّكِئِينَ عَلَى رَفْرَفٍ خُضْرٍ وَأَبْقَارٍ حِسَانٍ. And it says they're reclining on cushions. What the first one? What were they reclining on? Like couches. So the cushions, and it describes the cushions to the footrest for the chairs. They say, and they have also green lush carpet, and their cushions are on carpet. Okay? Nice green carpets, and that's why some of the translators say green meadows and everything like that. But it's better, it's carpet, and it's nice and thick carpet right there. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Which of the favors of your Lord are you going to reject? Which one of these favors you going to reject? تَبَارَكَ اسْمُ رَبِّكَ ذِي الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. It says, then it ends, it says, glorified be the name of your Lord, ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. Let me say it again, al-jalal wal-ikram. Right? So here again, glorified be the name of your Lord, the one who is jalala, you know, majestic and noble and honorable. And ikram, and so generous in his nobility that he's giving. He's constantly giving from his kiram. Okay? So these are the 2 gardens, and under them another 2 gardens that we speak about in Surat Al-Rahman. The surah starts off with what Allah has done for us in his creation. Then he tells us about what's going to happen, some of the things that we do generally in the world, in his creation, and how we were created. Then it talks about the punishment that's going to ensue on the day of judgment. Then it talks about the 2 gardens for the muqarrabeen. The muqarrabeen are those people who are the prophets and the siddiqeen, those people who are trustworthy and truthful, those martyrs and the salihin. And then ashab al-yameen get the second part of that, the second 2 gardens. Okay? So let's go and look for Jannat al-Firdaus. Has anybody any questions? Like I said, we're not going over this word for word, inshallah, because the surahs are bigger now. We're just trying to get a general understanding of the surah. Okay, so that we know its length. Where did it come down in? Mecca or Medina, right? How many ayat does it have? 78. What's the name of the surah? Right, no words can extend to the length and the strength of this mercy's extent. It's the 55th chapter for genies and men, and it claims which of the favors of your Lord do you reject, right? And also, there's another ayah. This is not the only place in the Quran. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ comes. Allah says in another surah, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكَ تَتَمَارَى. Which one of the favors of your Lord are you going to argue about? Are you going to debate about? Are you going to doubt in? Okay? And they say that's the tafsir for those other ayat. Wallahu a'lam. The best tafsir is the Quran bil Quran. If you don't have any questions for me, we'll have a statement for you. Next week you will have a test on this surah. Yes?
Yeah, I got a question.
I'm sorry, he had one first. Yes, sir.
Okay. So how are we going to get to Al-Jannah? How are we going to get there?
فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. You know, Allah says in a general sense, then race to all that's good. Okay? Follow the Prophet ﷺ said, he left behind his sunnah, with sunnah Rashideen, Khulaf al-Rashideen. He says, Addu alayha bin nawadij. He says, bite down on their sunnah with your back teeth. You know, so stick to their sunnah, stick to my sunnah and the sunnah of the Khulaf al-Rashideen, and that's how you get to Jannah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my question is, one guy, he asked me like to describe God.
Hold on. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Yes, sir.